What do you do when your duty to save others means trusting family with what matters most? The morning sky glowed a pale gray as I pulled my bunker pants over thermal leggings, the scratchy fabric already familiar after years on the force. Christmas Day or not fire didn't wait. I kissed Ellie's forehead before she even stirred. She looked peaceful in the dim light, her auburn hair fanned across the pillow green sweater, laid out on the chair beside her. Breakfast sandwich in the fridge. Call me if you need anything. And wear the coat, not the jacket, I whispered, though I knew she was probably half awake already. She mumbled, "Got it, Mom. Love you," without opening her eyes. My shift started at 6 a.m., and the first call came at 6:22. A barn fire on the edge of county line, possibly caused by a space heater. We tore across the frost-bitten road tires, slicing the silence of the morning. My body moved on instinct hose entry contain, but my mind kept flicking back to Ellie. She was supposed to head to my parents' ranch around 2 p.m. She'd been so careful about it. Wrapped her gifts 3 days early, picked a sweater that made her hazel eyes pop, even practiced the family sweet potato recipe until the top browned just right. I knew she was trying to fit in with a family that had always made her feel like a temporary guest, rather than a rightful member. Still, I had convinced myself this year would be different. Chase and Tiffany's kids would be there, sure, but Ellie was older now. Capable. Kind. Maybe they'd see her. At 2:09, while we cleaned up after the call, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. A message from Ellie heading home. "Don't worry. All good. No emojis, no follow-up. Just those clipped practiced words of someone trying to pretend they weren't hurt." My fingers went colder than the December wind cutting across the back lot. At 3:30, she texted again, "Home safe. See you tonight." No mention of dinner. No mention of who said what. Just silence. It was the kind of quiet I'd come to recognize not as peace, but pain wearing a mask. I finished the shift, taped a sprained wrist, helped clean out a squad truck. I even forced a smile when Captain Douglas handed out gingerbread cookies shaped like fire hydrants. But my heart had already gone home where a 17-year-old girl dressed to impress had been told there was no room for her, where she'd eaten alone, and where tonight she'd sleep with unanswered questions and a heart full of frost. How many small exclusions does it take to finally break someone's heart? I arrived at Grandma and Grandpa's ranch house at exactly 2:57. The gravel driveway crunched under my tires as I pulled up beside Uncle Chase's enormous SUV. I paused, took a breath, and checked my reflection in the visor mirror. The green sweater still looked okay, even if I now wished I'd gone with the black one. Inside, things looked like every other Christmas garlands wrapped around the banister candles, flickering on every table, and the scent of cinnamon mixed with roasted ham. Grandpa gave me a hug at the door and carried in my sweet potato casserole with a proud smile. But Grandma, she barely glanced at me. "Green washes you out a little," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Come help in the kitchen." I nodded, ignoring the sting. I'd come prepared to earn my place. Again. We worked side by side in silence. I mashed potatoes while she took call after call, muttering about extra mouths to feed. By the time Aunt Tiffany and Uncle Chase arrived, along with 4 people, I didn't recognize. It became clear the guest list had changed. The more the merrier, Grandma chirped, arranging place cards at the big dining table. Except the more didn't include me. At 4:30, while everyone else mingled, Grandma pulled me aside near the laundry room. "Ellie, sweetie, the adults need the dining chairs. Would you mind eating at the kitchen counter?" I nodded. "Sure. Wonderful. You're so adaptable." I helped set the main table. Ethan and Zoe, my cousins younger than me, got seats beside their parents. When I asked why I couldn't sit there too, Grandma said, "They're with their parents, dear. You understand." I didn't. But I said nothing. I sat at the kitchen counter, my plate in front of me, the clatter of laughter spilling from the next room, like music I hadn't been invited to dance to. One of Uncle Chase's guests stopped by to grab another drink. He glanced at me and joked, "Did you get grounded or something?" I smiled weakly. A few minutes later, Grandma returned, eyes fluttering. Actually, Ellie, it's a bit cramped tonight. Maybe next year would be better, when things are less hectic. She didn't wait for an answer. I stood left, my plate untouched, walked past the glittering tree and murmuring adults, and stepped into the cold. Not one person followed me. Not even to say goodbye. Can silence be louder than a scream when it comes from someone you love? By the time I got home, it was nearly dark. The porch light flicked on as I stepped out of the car, the casserole dish still wrapped in foil beside me, untouched, just like the space they never gave me. Inside, the apartment smelled faintly of cinnamon and lavender from Mom's holiday diffuser. Everything was quiet, too quiet. I placed the dish on the counter, kicked off my boots, and stood in the hallway unsure of what to do next. So I made hot chocolate. I nuked milk in the microwave, stirred in powder from the packet, added exactly 5 marshmallows, like Mom always did, and sat cross-legged on the couch with a blanket around my shoulders. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. I tried watching a Christmas movie, but it felt fake. I turned it off after 10 minutes. I opened my phone, looked at texts from friends, even hovered over one contact to type, "Can I call you?" but stopped myself. I didn't want pity. I wanted someone to notice I was missing, but no one did. At 9:02 p.m., I left Mom a voicemail. "Hey, I'm home. Everything's fine. Don't worry about me. Merry Christmas." I didn't mention dinner, or Grandma's words, or the look Aunt Tiffany gave me when I reached for the last clean fork. I changed into pajamas, left the green sweater folded neatly at the foot of my bed, and crawled under the covers with my phone in hand just in case anyone called. No one did. I fell asleep listening to the buzz of the fridge and the occasional thud of footsteps from the neighbor upstairs. I'd never felt so small in my own home. Hours later, I didn't hear Mom come in. But I must have sensed her because when I stirred awake just past midnight, I saw the bedroom door slightly cracked open, a sliver of hallway light stretching across the floor. And I knew she had seen it all. The uneaten dinner, the unopened gifts, me curled up still waiting to be remembered. What happens when the quiet one finally speaks? The apartment was still when I woke, but the air had shifted, like something had settled overnight, and something else had started to rise. Ellie was still asleep, curled toward the wall, one hand near her face, the other resting loosely on the unopened gift I'd left on her nightstand the night before. A small silver keychain shaped like a vintage camera. She'd wanted it for months. I hadn't expected she'd leave it wrapped. I stepped quietly into the kitchen. The cold hardwood under my feet grounded me. Coffee brewed in silence, and as the steam rose, so did my resolve. I didn't cry. Instead, I took out a notepad and began to write. No dramatics, no yelling, just truth. Mom, Dad, you've told me for years that family means showing up. But Ellie showed up yesterday and you didn't. You made space for strangers and pushed her out. You told her to come back next year. She drove home alone on Christmas Day while you served pie to people who won't remember her name. This isn't just about a chair at the table. It's about years of dismissing her, skipping over her birthday, forgetting she likes art, comparing her to Ethan and Zoe, like she's supposed to be grateful just to be near them. I used to think if I stayed quiet, things would change, that if I kept the peace you'd eventually see her, love her, respect her. But I'm done waiting. From now on, Ellie and I will build our own traditions with people who don't need to be reminded to make room. I signed my name, folded it in thirds. No venom, just clarity. At 6:30 a.m., while Ellie still slept, I drove to the ranch. No lights were on in the house yet. The wreath on the door was tilted from the wind. I slid the letter between the door and the storm frame, pressing it flat so it wouldn't blow away. I didn't knock. I didn't linger. I turned, walked back to the car, and exhaled, for what felt like the first time all year. They had always counted on my silence. This time, I gave them my voice instead. Can regret fix what love let fester? The message came at 7:12 a.m. Lauren, what does this letter call me? Dad. By 7:18 there were 3 missed calls. 1 from Mom, 2 from Dad. At 7:21, a 4th came, and this one from Chase. I silenced the phone and placed it face down on the kitchen counter. Ellie was still in her room, the door cracked open. I could hear the soft scrape of drawers, the quiet clink of her spoon stirring something. She didn't say much when she woke. Just a gentle morning as she padded barefoot into the kitchen. I served her pancakes shaped like stars. Chocolate chips smiled from the center of each one. It was something I used to do when she was little, on days she came home from school with her shoulders slumped and her voice quiet. She blinked at the plate. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to, I said. No one else is getting to push you out of the picture again. Not ever. She nodded, eyes misting, but said nothing. Instead, she ate in silence, slowly, like she needed to feel the weight of being cared for. When my phone buzzed again, I flipped it over. Another text from Dad. Your mother is beside herself. She didn't mean to hurt Ellie. This is being blown out of proportion. I handed the phone to Ellie. She read it, then looked up at me. Are they mad? I shook my head. They're loud. That's not the same. She gave me the smallest smile. Good. We spent the rest of the morning in matching pajamas, watched old reruns, folded the laundry together, wrapped leftover pancakes in foil for later, and every time the phone buzzed again, I let it. Let it ring. Let it wait. Let them feel just for once what it's like to be the ones left on the outside, wondering whether they'd be let back in. If they won't make room, you build your own table. By noon, the apartment smelled like cinnamon rosemary and something slightly burnt. I'd forgotten how long it had been since we used the oven for anything besides frozen pizza, but Ellie didn't seem to mind. She'd taken over the kitchen sleeves, rolled up hair in a messy bun, directing me like a Food Network host as she read a recipe off her phone. Careful with the marshmallows, Mom. We're aiming for golden, not arson. I laughed. Fire jokes on Christmas. That's dark even for us. She grinned. Dark is honest. There were knocks at the door just after 1. Samira and Clay from next door stood on the mat holding a casserole dish and a bottle of apple cider. We figured y'all might need backup, Clay said, with a wink. Behind them, 2 firefighters from my station, Beth and Marcus, waved sheepishly, carrying a store-bought pumpkin pie and a box of mismatched ornaments. I heard there was food, Marcus said, and possibly forgiveness. Ellie opened the door wider without hesitation. Come on in. We've got folding chairs and a playlist. Within 30 minutes, our tiny dining nook had transformed into something real, cluttered, imperfect, but alive. Someone strung tinsel between the curtain rods. Beth taped a paper snowflake to the fridge. Clay insisted on carving the turkey like a Southern dad should, even though it was a rotisserie chicken from the supermarket. Ellie was glowing. People asked about her photography. Samira told her she'd seen one of her photos in the local paper last month. Marcus asked if she'd consider shooting portraits for the Firehouse Calendar fundraiser. They're seeing you, I whispered, as she passed by me with a tray of deviled eggs. She looked up, eyes soft. Yeah, it's weird, but good weird. Later, as we toasted with sparkling cider and mismatched mugs, Ellie raised her glass a little higher, to the table that actually made space. Everyone clinked their cups. And for the first time in years, I felt full not just from food, but from the kind of family that didn't need to share your blood to honor your place at the table. When someone says I didn't mean it, does it make it hurt less? He showed up just after sunset. No call, no warning, just the familiar rumble of Dad's old Dodge pulling into the lot, headlights cutting across our living room window. Ellie was in her room editing photos from the day. I cracked the door and said quietly, "It's Grandpa." She didn't look up. "You can talk to him. I'm good." I understood. I opened the door instead. Dad stood at the bottom of the stairwell, holding something wrapped in a weathered plaid blanket. "Didn't know if you were home," he muttered. I crossed my arms. "What do you want, Dad?" He shifted awkwardly. "Thought I'd give you this." He unwrapped the blanket, revealing an old photo album, leather-bound, dusty at the edges. Inside were Polaroids from my childhood. Ellie's baby pictures. Even a photo of her holding a turkey leg when she was 5, grinning with mashed potatoes on her chin. "Your mom used to keep this on the coffee table," he said. "I found it in the attic." I flipped through it slowly. It wasn't nothing, but it also wasn't enough. "She cried herself to sleep, you know," I said, voice even. "Still in the sweater she picked out to impress all of you." Dad exhaled through his nose like the weight of it was finally settling on his chest. "Your mother, she gets overwhelmed. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. It did happen like that." He looked down. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for my part in it. I should have noticed. I didn't. I waited, but there was no what can I do, no how's Ellie, no attempt to make it right. Just guilt, just history, just another man who meant well." "I appreciate you coming," I said flatly, handing the album back. "But next time, don't bring memories. Bring presents." He nodded, once hugged the album to his chest, and walked back to his truck. And as his taillights disappeared into the night, I closed the door, not with anger, but with understanding. This wasn't the apology we needed. It was just the one he could give. What happens when a daughter stops waiting to be loved and starts living like she already is? By the second week of January, the wreath was still on our door, but the girl inside the apartment had changed. Ellie no longer tiptoed around other people's expectations. She woke early now, fixed her own coffee, too much cream, not enough sugar, and spent hours storyboarding her short film for the state competition. One night, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, laptop glowing, a stack of scholarship brochures spread between us. "I want to go to California," she said suddenly. I blinked. "California, UCLA, film school. It's expensive, I know, but I found this national scholarship. It's a long shot, but I'm applying." I nodded slowly, heart hammering. "You don't need permission, Ellie?" "I know," she smiled. "But it still feels good to say it out loud." We started planning, college visits, application deadlines, even flights. She made a spreadsheet. I took an extra shift at the station. But the biggest shift didn't happen on paper. It happened the day I offered to go with her to her portfolio review at a local college, and she gently declined. "I want to do this one on my own," she said. "I need to know I can." So I dropped her off, watched her walk through the double glass doors, wearing the same green sweater from Christmas, only this time her head was high. When she came back out 2 hours later, she was beaming. They loved it. My photos, my story. They said I have a voice. "You always did," I said. "They're just finally hearing it." That night, as we ate takeout and watched old movies, she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You know what the worst part about Christmas was?" I braced myself. "I waited," she whispered, "waited for them to call. To say they'd made a mistake. To tell me they wanted me back." I swallowed hard. And now she sat up straighter. "Now I know I don't need to wait for people who make me feel invisible. I'll go where I'm seen." I smiled, tears warming the corners of my eyes. "Then lead the way, kiddo. I'm right behind you." And I meant it. Every mile, every flight, every new beginning. "Do you still save a seat for the ones who never showed up?" The invitation was unplanned, just a group text sent out on a Thursday night. Spring BBQ at ours. Sunday 2 p.m. Bring something smoky or sweet. Foldable chairs encouraged. Samira and Clay arrived first, as always. Then Beth from the station carrying homemade jalapeno cornbread. Marcus brought his dog, who promptly tried to eat the decorations. Ellie set up a table in the courtyard with pitchers of lemonade and hand-lettered name cards she'd made the night before. All of them had a seat. All of them belonged. But one chair, placed quietly at the far end of the table, remained untouched. It wasn't for show. It wasn't for guilt. It was a reminder. A wooden folding chair with a handwritten note resting on the plate. For anyone who chooses to show up for real this time. Ellie didn't point it out. She didn't explain it. She simply laid it out like she had every right to expect someone might claim it and every right to accept if no one did. No one from the Langley side of the family came that day, not even Dad, who'd texted that morning, "Hope you girls have a good one." It wasn't cruel, just distant, habitual. But Ellie didn't flinch when she read it. Instead, she pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of the group mid-toast faces, glowing in the golden hour light. Her camera catching laughter in motion and joy in the spaces between. Later that night, as we folded up the table and rinsed dishes under warm water, I glanced at the empty chairs still sitting under the patio string lights. "Should I pack it up?" I asked. Ellie looked at it for a beat, then shook her head. "Leave it," she said. "Maybe next time." She didn't say it with hope. She said it with power. What if the love that lasts isn't the one you're born into, but the one you choose to fight for graduation day came hotter than expected. Texas heat baking through the folding chairs, tassels sticking to foreheads, and proud parents fanning themselves with printed programs. I sat in the fourth row, camera in hand, waiting for her name. Ellie Grace, Langley Honors Graduate. She walked across that stage like she owned it. Not with arrogance, but certainty. Every step she took was built on everything she had survived. The invisible scars, the silent dinners, the apologies that never came, and the strength she'd found anyway. Afterward, our apartment overflowed with the kind of people who'd shown up when it mattered. Meredith from the station brought cupcakes. Rachel and Brian from next door made collard greens. Marcus brought a Polaroid and turned our wall into a photo timeline of Ellie moments. Someone asked if we had invited her grandparents. Ellie answered before I could. "No," she said simply. "They haven't earned it yet. No bitterness, no anger, just boundaries." Later that evening, we stood together in the quiet of the balcony, the summer air thick with humidity, and the distant crackle of fireworks from someone celebrating early. She turned to me, her expression softer than I'd seen in weeks. They sent a card. Grandma and Grandpa said they're reflecting. "And how do you feel about that?" she shrugged. "I think they're learning. But I'm not building my life around their timeline anymore." I nodded. "That's fair." She reached into her back pocket and pulled out a tiny silver charm, an old-fashioned flame etched into it. "I made this in metals class," she said. "For you." I turned it over in my palm, touched by the weight of it. "It's fireproof," she said. "Like us." The next morning, we headed out for our campus visit to UCLA. Bags in the trunk, playlists cued iced coffees in the cup holders. Before pulling out of the lot, she looked back at the building, then at me. "You ready more than ever?" She smiled. "Let's go make something new." And as we drove west, leaving behind a version of our lives that once needed permission, I realized she wasn't just growing up. She was growing free, no longer asking for space. She was building it with light, with grace, and with a fire that no one would ever dim again.